Dude, I just read this amazing book. If on a winter's night, a traveler by Italo Calvino. Did you read it in Italian? No? Did. Then you read If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, translated by William Weaver. You mother... Volare.
Oh. Alright. Last week was a pretty long video, so this week we're just going to do a quick one on translation. Of course, we had been talking about If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler by Italo Calvino, but if you flip it over here on the back, it is translated by William Weaver. Now, there are many purists out there that say, oh, only read the original. And while it may sound snobby to some degree, there are actually some pretty good reasons as to why, and it's not just to be hip. The original is way better. The first thing being that not all words translate exactly. I was actually on this website called Lingaholic earlier today just to see if there's any official count for how many words are actually in each language specifically. And the way that they determined that was by looking at the largest dictionary from each language and going from there. Now we'll just be looking at two. If you couldn't tell by the name Italo Calvino, this novel was originally in Italian and was translated to English. And so looking at the dictionaries for each of those, English has 171,476 words in current use, and Italian has 270,000. Now, I don't know how incredibly correct that is. Obviously, the website was saying they used the largest dictionaries, and even on there was a disclaimer saying that this may not be correct, but the main point holds true. There are not an equal amount of words in each language. Just using a personal example of how this can affect the text, I have a music channel on the side that is Bear Gulch, and so I had a song that I had written before I had that name that I used as my artist name, and so I didn't want to reuse that name in English when I put it up on YouTube, and so I looked up the Spanish translation there, and so it was oso for bear. And then when I looked up what it would be for gulch, it was barranco. I decided to turn that around and look what the Spanish to English translation would be for that, and barranco actually first came up with ravine. And so you can see there alone, of course those things are very, very similar, but that might not be the exact connotation that I would be trying to get across if somebody was just reading Oso Barranco. It's not Bear Ravine, it's Bear Gulch. Add a few of those minor changes and you can really see how that would change the original meaning of a text from the author. Furthermore, using the Spanish example again, because that's the main language that I've studied in school, one of the hardest parts of languages is with idioms. Now, I've seen it in the past when somebody is trying to learn English and they're talking to me and all of a sudden I throw out an idiom of the English language like the cat's out of the bag, for instance, and they would say, what cat's out of what bag? If you take it literally, it doesn't make much sense. The same holds true when translating another language to English. And that could be a huge problem for translations. A lot of these idioms, when translated, don't make a lot of sense, but can maybe be explained another way. Does the translator take that liberty for clarity? Is the novel tainted if they do this? If you think about it, if a translator does this, it's not really the true words of the author anymore. And that leads us to the last of my few quick points here. The thing is, a book translated by two different people could actually end up very different altogether. Think of how many various ways there are to turn a sentence. The boy threw the green ball. The green ball was thrown by the boy. And yes, those are technically different tenses, but if any subtlety is lost on the translator, you could lose out on many important aspects of the novel, like humor, for instance. That being said, I still found If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler very funny and coherent, and I don't really have a problem with translations, but I do sit there thinking, what could I possibly be missing right now? Ever since reaching the lower threshold of the intermediate level of the Spanish language, I've had this desire to attempt to read a novel in its native language. It sounds incredibly daunting, but the same site that I referenced earlier, Lingaholic, made an incredible point about what it takes to actually read in a language that's not yours. They mention Pareto's law, which states that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. In other words, 20% of your efforts make up 80% of your results. There's an app out there for all of you that don't know called Duolingo. It's free on your phones, and it's a really easy way to learn a lot of the basics about certain languages. And how that all ties in is this site talks about when you're reading a book, 80% of what you read is going to be stemming from these basic concepts of the language. The rest of it's going to be a little more advanced, but hopefully you should be able to pick up those words that you don't know with your context clues.
Cantare. Oh,
Of course, we live in an age where language translators are always in reach, and so if there's anything that you can't understand past what you're given with the context clues, you can always look it up too. Of course, that's hard to compare with reading an original text when you are fluent in the language, but it's something I want to try to see if it changes the experience at all, especially if it's with a book that maybe I've read in English previously. I was thinking about picking up Don Quixote. We read a few parts of it in Spanish in high school, and I want to get the full experience with that and then see if over time, making it a long project, seeing if I can make my way through it with the Spanish skills that I have. As has been the case with all these discussion videos, I'm not truly taking a side here. I like to kind of play devil's advocate and show both sides of various arguments within the reading community, and kind of toss the rest out to you. What are your thoughts on translated texts? Do you avoid them like the plague? Do you pick them up? Is it something you shun other people for reading? Let me know in the comments below, and I would love to continue the conversation. I got caught again with the read it first bug, and so I am on my way with The Handmaid's Tale. I know that adaptation's coming to Hulu later this month, and so I wanted to get a feel for how the novel is before I jump into that. And so I'll be talking about that next week in anticipation of watching the show. And so I hope you can join me again. Dinner's done. I'm out of here. Peace.
dipinto di blu, felice di stare lassù. E volavo, volavo felice più in alto del sole ed ancora più su, mentre il mondo pian piano spariva lontano laggiù.